What's up, you guys? Welcome to today's video. As you can tell by the title, we're going to be talking about what really happens on a prison yard, the female edition. In this video, I'm going to break down indoor and outdoor rec and what I have seen while serving time in prison. For those new to my channel, I'm a recovering addict who has been to prison, and I will leave more videos about my story and my journey in the description box down below. Also, if you guys did not know, I started a podcast, I know, finally, and that is linked in the description box down below as well. It is available on Spotify, Google Podcasts, and all these little doobly-doos right here. I love it over there. I love being able to be uncensored and say whatever I want, and we have a lot of really meaningful conversations over there, and I also have guests over there, so be sure to check that out. All right, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So let's start with what a prison rec yard looks like. Now, it's pretty self-explanatory. So it's just a big yard and there is a fence, sometimes two, with barbed wire around them. That's outdoor rec. Now, that prison yard will more often than not have basketball hoops, a toilet with some cement right here so you get a tiny bit of privacy, but so that you can go to the bathroom out there. Some prison yards have phones out there. In some states you can smoke cigarettes, like in New York. Other states you cannot, like Arkansas. There might be a wall that you can play handball on. There might be a couple of pieces of equipment to work out on, like a pull-up bar. There might be bleachers. Every prison is different. Every setup is different. Every prison has different rules. So that's what an outdoor rec yard looks like. An indoor prison rec yard is not really a yard, it's just a gym, and it has basketball hoops, sometimes a volleyball net, or like a workout ball, or like a jump rope, and all of those things have been donated to the prison. If you're in county, the rec yard in county jail is not a rec yard or a gym. In my personal experience, it is like a cement hole that is just a cement room, and you can see the clouds. You can't see anything else. You can't see traffic, you can't see cars, you can't see people. Now, I've been in facilities in county jails like that. So, you know, rec yard is like cement wall. Now, if you do go to prison and you're in a prison segregation unit because you have broken the rules, the rec yard is a dog cage. It just literally looks like a giant cage that a dog would be in, or cement hole like they have in county jails. In most facilities, you're supposed to be allowed to go to rec at least once a day, but in most facilities, you're allowed to go twice a day to the rec yard. So now that we got the image of what a rec yard looks like out, let me share some things that I have seen. Now, a lot of times the women would go to rec to see their girlfriends, because a lot of times the women are kept separate from their girlfriends. Not all the time, but you know what I'm saying. So they would want to go to see their girlfriends or their friends that lived in a different housing unit. Now, in my experience, you don't all go to the rec yard all at the same time. You do things per housing unit. So like housing unit 1 that has a few barracks in it, they would go to the rec yard. Then housing unit 1 would go back to their housing unit. Then housing unit 2 would go to the rec yard and then back. So every compound is very structured in its movement. You don't just walk around a prison unit. You have to be cleared to go through all these different things. So if it is chow time, an officer will walk your barracks or your housing unit down to chow hall, and then they will walk you back. If it's time to go to the rec yard, an officer will walk you and your barracks or your housing unit to the rec yard, and they walk you back. So every movement in prison is controlled, and you can't just walk around. So a lot of times I would see the women go to rec to see their girlfriends or to see their friends that lived in a different barracks, not a different housing unit, because we go per housing unit. Now, in every housing unit, there might be 6 barracks, and each barracks might have 50, 60 women in them. So it's a lot of people. Let's start with indoor rec and what I've seen in indoor rec. So a lot of times the women would want to go to indoor rec to see their friends, see their girlfriends, or pass either commissary or pass contraband from each other. So one time I was going to indoor rec to see Hollywood. We were in the same housing unit, but different barracks. So I was going to see Hollywood and talk to her, and we're sitting down. There was like, not bleachers, but like benches on one side of the gym. So we were just sitting down and talking, and she looks over at this girl, and she was passing commissary to another girl, and she's like, look but don't look, you know? And I'm like, oh God, So we look over and we see this inmate passing 3 bags of Keefy coffee to each other, and I'm like, 3 bags? Like, she's gonna get busted. What do you wanna bet? And Hollywood's like, no man, they got it, they got it. And I'm like, dude, no way can you hide 3 bags of coffee in your bra and pass it to your friend and not get busted, you know? So they were able to pass it off without being seen, but once you leave the rec yard or once you leave indoor rec, they pat us all down. So I'm like, no, she's gonna get stopped. 100% she's gonna get stopped. And you know, they had them all folded up and all small inside of her bra, but still, if you pat someone down, you're gonna hear it, right? Oh, by the way, this is the original prison coffee. You can get it on Amazon, but it's overpriced, so I don't know. 100% she's busted. And we start like doing a little bets on it because 3 bags of coffee, that's a lot, you know? And I think she even had hot chocolate in there too. So rec ends and we're getting patted down, and sure enough, she gets stopped. And it was funny, the female officer that was patting her down, she's like, are you serious? And she had to laugh about it, and she starts pulling out coffee, and then another bag of coffee, and then another bag of coffee, and hot chocolate, and creamer, and sugar, and it was like she had a freaking coffee station. She had like a Starbucks store in her bra, and I was like, girl, it was too much. Should have kept it at 1. So a lot of times that happens where you go to rec just to pass off certain things, or you're trying to give your friend, you know, a bag of coffee or 10. She didn't have 10, but you know what I mean. So, you know, sometimes that happens. Other times women will go to rec yard to see their girlfriend and specifically do sexual things on the rec yard. Now say you see that, you see 2 girls doing their thing on the prison rec yard, and you're just walking around, you're running laps, you're minding your own business. You have to continue to mind your own business. You can't draw attention to it, you can't say anything, just let it be, you know what I mean? But sometimes they go to the rec yard for that. Other times people go to the rec yard to fight. So I'm gonna share with you guys 2 experiences that I've had indoor and outdoor rec when I saw a fight get crazy. So the first one that I'm gonna tell you guys about is indoor rec. So I was in indoor rec, and I was just sitting on the bench talking to some of my friends. Where I was at in indoor rec, I was at the far side of the gym. There's 2 officers at the door, not really paying attention to anything. And there was like this little bathroom, which is basically like, it's a toilet with like cement blocks. So I was probably 10 feet away from the toilet with cement blocks, and people started to get a little loud, and they started to disagree about something, and it all happened so fast. So a fight broke out like 10 feet away from me. I backed up as far as I could, but we're inside. I can't get that far away. I back up to the far wall, just as far away as I can get from that fight. And the officers came running at them and sprayed pepper spray all over. Now we're in a gym, and it's like a condensed room. We're not outside, there's not fresh air, and once you spray pepper spray in a condensed area, it's gonna like seep out to everywhere. So even though I was 10 feet away from that, I still felt it. And it was a little bit painful, not as painful as getting actually pepper sprayed because I was in a prison fight. If I can find that story time, I will leave it in the description box down below as well. But I had a direct shot of pepper spray at me one time. So if a fight breaks out, officers have to run and separate them. There was no weapon during this fight in indoor rec, and the officers could have very easily pulled these 2 women apart, but instead one officer just stood there and sprayed pepper spray all around. And that's something that I don't personally agree with. Like, yeah, you shouldn't be fighting, but he not only sprayed the people that were fighting, but he sprayed everyone else that was even kind of close to them, because he was just kind of like sitting there like this for a really long time. So to me, that's unnecessary force, and we lost our rec privileges for like 2 weeks, and we had nothing to do with it. So that's prison for you. Another time I was in outdoor rec, and I was just shooting hoops by myself. Not relevant to the story, but I'm a pretty good 3-point shot. I just really enjoyed just shooting shots by myself. I was shooting hoops, and with a basketball that was basically half deflated because no one was ever able to pump up these basketballs. Super annoying. Also irrelevant to the story. But A stud broad who I was friends with, she started to get really upset with her ex-girlfriend that came up to her and her new girlfriend. And a lot of the times in female prisons, fights break out and violence breaks out over girlfriends. There's a lot of drama with that. And I look over and I see her start to get a little bit loud, and my first instinct was to go help her. I don't even know what the fight is about. I don't care about girlfriend drama, but I was a little bit concerned. And I stood there for a second and I'm like, what do I do? Do I help her? Like, fight or flight, fight or flight. Do I help her? I stood there for a second. I realized that my friend had a shank and she had it at her side. She wasn't like pointing it at anybody. She just had it in her hand. So now I'm like, if I say something to her and I try to stop this fight, maybe she'll come at me. So I'm just standing there like, what do I do? You know what I mean? And it all happened super, super fast. Well, her and this girl started to fight. Now I can't even see what is happening. I don't know if my friend had stabbed someone else. I can't see. And people started to all like gather around them, and it just was a huge thing. Correctional officers came from every freaking direction on this prison yard, started pepper spraying them, and I never saw that friend again. Now, as they're pulling them up, I did see that like there wasn't any blood anywhere. So my friend I know was physically okay, but she was pepper sprayed, and I don't know about the other girl, but I did see that my friend, like I didn't see any blood, but that doesn't mean that no one actually got stabbed. So my friend, or like prison associate, I guess, she was taken to the hole and I never saw her again. So I honestly have no idea if anyone was actually stabbed in that altercation, but I do know that my friend or prison associate, she did have that. So tensions can get really high in prison. People are upset. People are not sleeping well because every single night people are loud as hell and you can't sleep. So we're not sleeping well. We're not even hydrated because the water is gross, warm, and sometimes the water is brown in prison. We're not getting proper nutrition because the prison serves you like the bare minimum of food that you need to like survive. We all miss our family. We all are struggling with different things. Maybe an inmate lost their mother. Maybe a tragedy happened at home and there's nothing you can do about it. Maybe you lost a family member and you can't go to the funeral. Tensions are always so high in prison, and it is very, very hard to go to prison. Also, we're human. Everything is also amplified in prison. So imagine having like a disagreement with somebody now, you would probably just walk away, right? Like it wouldn't even be that big of a deal. But if you have an altercation with someone in prison, it's a completely different ball game. So while you're watching myself and other prison YouTubers talk about things like this, talk about violence in prison and what goes on inside of prison, please keep in mind that we did what we had to do to survive. And prison is a very dark and very negative place, and it changes you. It changed me, and it changed how I view things. I've been in my fair share of jail and prison fights. I'm not proud of that. I am just letting you know that no matter what, at some point while going to prison, you will reach your breaking point. You will be frustrated. You will be emotional. You will be vulnerable. You will be pissed. You will be angry. And at some point, you will get taken to that place, that I'm not backing down place. And I have seen the quietest, most zen and chill people in prison snap and reach their breaking point, because it happens. We're human. Before I end today's video, I do want to say, because I'm not sure I said it in the beginning, yes, there are plenty of people that go to the prison rec yard just to work out and just to get fresh air. That was me. I always went to the rec yard just to get out of the stanky, stagnant air of the prison dorm, to get fresh air. And it was always so peaceful sitting outside, just sitting in the grass. I actually found a 4-leaf clover one time sitting in the grass at a prison rec yard. I enjoyed just sitting and soaking up some sun, and for a minute, just for a minute, you feel free. As always, I do want to remind you guys that over half of all incarcerated people are serving time for a non-violent drug offense, and an overwhelming amount of people also suffer from a mental health illness. Over 60% of people will leave prison with some form of PTSD. We need to stop treating human beings like animals in cages and start to help rehabilitate them so that when they leave society, we're not releasing broken people out into the world that will reoffend, that don't know how to get their life together, that don't know how to stay sober, that don't want to stay sober because they're medicating. And addiction, more often than not, is the symptom of a much bigger issue, whether that's mental health or trauma. I'm gonna end today's video here. I really hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. And if you have any more questions on what happens in a prison rec yard, the female edition, please let me know in the comment section down below. As always, I love you guys. Stay safe, stay sober, do not break the law, and I'll see you in my next one.